Let's get into this. Our first main topic here today, kind of speaking back to, we talked about this, I think it was last week, that Wonder Woman 1984, well, essentially they were discussing whether or not it was going to be coming out in theaters or if it was going to go on HBO Max. There were some rumors that WB had been discussing just putting it right on HBO Max, or perhaps doing a limited run in theaters for like maybe only like a week or two and then putting on HBO Max. But news came out, Patty Jenkins herself has confirmed that it's not only coming to HBO Max, it's gonna come to both. It's gonna do in theaters and make HBO Max on the same day. So it's keeping the December 25th release date, but it's also gonna be on in theaters and on HBO Max, which is interesting because normally, like these are what does everybody say anymore with the times we're in right now? Was it like troubling times,
Trying times?
trying times, or
All that
unprecedented
works.
unprecedented times? That's
Yeah.
the one that always goes around.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess same. You could say the same for this because obviously, with the movie theaters have been hit pretty hard during the pandemic. Many of them never even. Some of them have never been open throughout this whole time period. Some of them open for a little bit. Some of them don't. Regardless of how much they've been open, they haven't had any movies to actually really play in them. The only like new movie release we had all year was Tenet, and it did not do very well at the box office. I think we pulled the numbers up last week or something. I think it was worldwide. It only made around $300-400 million, which is, I mean, that movie came out any other year, it would have been 800 million to probably $1 billion, like Christopher Nolan movies normally make. But again, these are unprecedented times, and normally it looks like the theatrical window is just being kind of thrown away at this point in time, and theaters unfortunately don't really have much they can do about it. I mean, at this point, they're in a place where they're kind of taking anything they can get, whether it's going to be a whole normal 3-month theatrical run or not, because I believe too, Cinemark has recently made a deal to shorten the theatrical window even further, just like AMC and Universal had made a deal a while back that allowed them to kind of pick and choose what movies would be just how long they'd be in the theaters and everything like that. But Cinemark and Regal have come in, and they've essentially almost every theater at this point have had to make some sacrifices, and they've been making deals with the studios to shorten this theatrical window. So we're getting to a time here that soon enough we might honestly see a lot more of this same day release end up happening, because theaters might not even really have a choice of the matter, because depending on how long it takes for the theaters to kind of recover from all this, people to bounce back and go into the movie theaters, they're just going to be needing content. And if the only way they can do that, and the only way that like the theaters or the studios rather can even make any financial success of themselves, would be if they're if they're going to primarily being successful on their streaming service, then they kind of have to be able to put it on their streaming service.
Yeah.
But then the theaters obviously aren't going to be successful with them going on the theater service. But it's like a lose-lose and a win-win. It's like really that's the only thing they got. But what do you guys think? I could probably drone on about this forever. But what do you guys think about this having Rick, we'll take it to you first. What do you think about the Wonder Woman 84 going to HBO Max and theaters on the same day here?
Well, I mean, I figured it'd probably be something like that. But, I like the idea of being able to watch these sorts of movies from home, if you so choose to do so. But sitting on your couch, having a drink, whatever you're doing, going to theaters is good, but in these trying times, as we discussed, unprecedented times, I just think it's nice to have the option either way.
Yeah, I mean, I think for right now, the times we're in right now, I mean, it's like what other choice do you have? Like, especially because even if you can go to the theaters, there's a lot of people kind of like myself where even though the theaters are doing everything they possibly can to keep everything safe, social distancing, whatever, it's still a matter of like a personal choice whether or not they want to even put themselves at risk. If you want to put yourself at risk to potentially be exposed, and especially with the numbers and cases like pretty much worse now than they were ever in the United States.
Oh, they get worse every day.
Yeah, so it's kind of I think with this, the only thing that is probably like with Wonder Woman 84 going to HBO Max, the only kind of downside with it is HBO Max is only available right now in US territories. So the only choice for, international markets is to go to the theaters because they
True.
can't watch on HBO Max. Well, it's either that, you either go to the theater or they pirate it. One of the two. Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what do you think, John? Because I know you're definitely a theater goer. You like the movie theater experience, So what do you think about this? What it means going forward?
Yeah, that's almost an understatement. I'm really torn. I mean, there's the comic book nerd in me that is ecstatic that it's coming out soon, and I'm going to get to see it because I've been waiting for this movie since basically the end credits rolled on the last one. But I also was really waiting to see it on the big screen. And I was wrong. I thought for sure. I thought there's no way. Warner Brothers are going. DC and Warner Brothers are going to follow the precedent that was set by Marvel when they moved, and Disney when they moved all of their big releases, Black Widow, Eternals, when they moved everything back a year and just kind of called it a wash on 2020. I thought there's no way WB doesn't do the same thing. They're just going to call it a wash, especially after they released Tenet and didn't get quite the numbers that supposedly that they were hoping for. Um, and they didn't. They stuck to their guns and they've stuck to this December 25th release for it. And surprise, surprise, they're also going to release it streaming.
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure out in my head financially how this works for them. We had talked a few weeks back on one of the streams about the numbers for WB and HBO Max, and it seems like their numbers were about half of what Disney. I think we said they were about 30 million subscribers, and Disney I think is somewhere in the 60 to 70 million, and they're both trailing behind Netflix, which is pushing the 200 million mark at this point. So maybe this is a preemptive strike to try and close that gap with Disney, let alone Netflix on WB's part. It you know it definitely bucks the model that Disney tried with the Mulan release with charging a premium. I mean, this is quite possibly Warner Brothers' biggest movie release of this year, and they're putting it at no additional cost onto their streaming service. I would think at least for that month, it will drive quite a few subscribers. I mean, I can't see a family that would have spent, you know, $50, $60 to go see it in a theater balk at paying $15 for the month-long subscription to HBO Max to get to see Wonder Woman at home.
Yeah.
And having all that
Um,
other stuff with that too.
Yeah, and
sure,
that's their hope because I think the biggest thing here moving forward too, because there's been a lot of talk too about how recently, and we should be knowing more about where they're going, but Disney's overall shift into prioritizing the streaming service over more
sure,
than
yeah,
becoming a direct to consumer thing. They had an announcement about that like a month or so ago, saying that that's essentially going to be their primary focus is putting everything on Disney Plus, and yeah, like you were saying, they've already managed to get, I think it was like 73 million subscribers in the first year, and they've had
yeah,
no premium original content other than Mandalorian and Hamilton. So in an
yeah,
entire year of just releasing, two things essentially that are premium content wise, they've had other original stuff like on there, but nothing that's gonna make you, at least in my opinion, nothing that would make most people go out and get a subscription, you know?
yeah,
Whereas like something like Wonder Woman, that's enough for people definitely if they're not an HBO Max subscriber. I would think people would sign up, like you said, just it's $15, just as much as one movie ticket really in a lot of places, depending on, where you go. Easy
yeah,
win, and then hopefully, they see how great HBO Max is. Because speaking of which, I was just telling you earlier before the stream, HBO Max finally made a deal with Amazon to be on the Amazon Fire Stick and Amazon streaming devices. So
yep,
I finally had the privilege of being able to, easily access it. Because before I had to pretty much jump through a bunch of hoops just to get HBO Max on there. I jumped through a bunch of hoops. I just had to turn my PS4 on, but either way, it was a pain in the ass to be sitting there with, I can do whatever I want on my Fire Stick, jump to Netflix,
yeah.
whatever. but then I have to switch inputs on my TV and first world problems, right?
Yeah.
But because it was finally
So
on there, it was great.
it's the convenience factor. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
people have come to expect these things to be ubiquitous and work on all their different platforms, and when they don't, it makes people pause. It just adds that extra speed bump that can be annoying.
Well, interestingly enough, too, I read something earlier, but one of the reasons it took Amazon and Warner so long, quote unquote, to become available for HBO Max to become available on like I'm not sure if it's on Roku, but I know at least for like Amazon, this article I was reading was they like I guess one of the terms HBO wanted to happen was that they got rid of all of the other HBO apps like on their platform. So they wanted everything to be consolidated to HBO Max only, and that's what the biggest holdup was, I guess. And I think deeper than that, I think what it probably really was that you can buy HBO as an add-on service for Amazon, and I
Yeah,
bet that's what they wanted gone. Like I bet
yeah,
that would be my guess because the article is kind of coy about like what that really even meant. Like, it sounded like they just wanted HBO Now and, like, and all this stuff, but that's kind of irrelevant, they're all the same place. I think in the end, what HBO really wanted was Amazon not to have the HBO add-on service because that essentially goes, like, pretty much straight to them to some
yeah.
capacity.
Yeah.
They're obviously getting a bigger cutoff for that, so I don't know. I just think,
They
though.
wanted
Do what?
they wanted to cut off some of that revenue sharing that was
Yeah,
happening there.
that's my guess with it.
Yeah,
Because I think too, just, but based on what I was saying about the Disney Plus thing too, we're going to find out more about that direction that they're moving in, but I don't think this is going to be an uncommon thing going forward. Like I think like these streaming services is pretty much going to be like the way of the future because if you look at like Disney Plus, I mean, it's hard to deny how much of a moneymaker uh like the streaming service is for these companies, especially when it's like Disney has their own thing, so they're getting all the revenue goes straight to them, right? And Disney Plus, at least for them, they don't have to like if you look at Netflix, they license the majority of their content. So like that's one of the reasons Netflix is, what is it, like 20 some billion in debt every year, going
Yeah.
forward because they're trying to pump as much original content out, like not right now, which is totally fine for them because they have like they're still making pardon me if that came through my words a little bit. They're making buku money, so them being $20 billion in debt doesn't really matter because they have like I forget the number. It's like 200 million subscriptions or
it's
something. Just
close.
an
Yeah,
insane amount of money. So like they're totally fine, but they're pumping out all this original content because all these other streaming services are coming out directly from the, the content owners, right? Like Disney Plus, they're going to exclusively put only Disney stuff on there, so they're not having to pay a license fee like Netflix does to actually get all this content. So I think I was reading somewhere that Netflix has like their overall like bottom line is they're making. I mean, they're having to pay. I don't know. Just to put things in simple terms, because I don't really remember the exact numbers, but if let's say they made $3 billion, they're having to pay like $1 billion just to license content, and that licensed content is the majority of the content that's actually watched on Netflix. So
Yeah.
if they lose
mhm.
that, they're going to be in a tough spot.
Can be in a
So
pickle.
like do what?
I said they're going to be in a pickle.
Yeah, it's they're going, and which they already are starting to lose all that licensed content at this point
Yeah.
because these other streaming services are coming up. So it's hard to deny that, Disney Plus, even where they're at right now with 3 million subscriptions or whatever in that first year with no premium content, when you look at the numbers, it's like you can't deny how profitable it is for them because like imagine if a world where they are releasing more premium content, these numbers are only going to skyrocket. They're in a place to where since they don't have to license any material, like they're only using their own content, so that $1 billion licensing hypothetical number I threw out for Netflix, like Disney doesn't have that. Disney just has
Mhm.
pretty much pure profits every month, and the same would go with Warner. Like when they're just on HBO, they still are in a phase where HBO does license other things. Like they have new release movies they'll put on there or whatever, but eventually they're gonna be in a place where they're not gonna need to do it either. They're just gonna have
Yeah.
their own stuff and without having to pay the licensing cost for it. So I could definitely see like streaming being the way of the future, them releasing like more of these big budget movies like uh, Wonder Woman directly on HBO Max and just being consistent with that because I mean it just makes them too much money potentially. Like
Well, and that's the flip side of the coin that I was, that's the reason I'm a little torn about this whole decision by Warner Brothers to release Wonder Woman this way. I was talking with somebody and I told him I may not watch Wonder Woman on Christmas Day. I mean, normally I don't miss the opening, the first showing of a big movie like this, of a comic book movie. But my first opportunity to see this is going to be on the streaming service on Christmas Day, and I may not see it then. I may wait a day or two and check the theaters and see if I feel comfortable with the number of people that are going to be in my local theater for a showing and go see it in the theater first because to be honest, that's the experience I want first on my first viewing for these movies. I like being able to see them on the big screen. I like being able to get the immersive sound.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
premium
I have
sound.
yeah, I have a nice TV. I have a nice stereo setup, but I don't have a, $50,000, $100,000, whatever it costs to build a premium, movie theater experience cinema in your home. I don't have, and
yeah.
so my 60-inch television just doesn't compare to the 60-foot television or screen that's in the theater or however big it is. I'm sure my numbers are way off there.
It's big.
So there's part of me that's a little, while I'm happy that it's coming out, and I'm happy that people are going to have the opportunity to see it, and I'll have the opportunity to watch it whenever I want as a subscriber. I'm also worried that this might be the next step on that road to theaters not being as prevalent or not being as widely available, or even to theaters going away. If this becomes, let's say this comes out and it does gangbusters for HBO Max. Let's say it doubles or triples their subscriber base, and not only that, their subscriber base they were able to retain it for the next 2 or 3 months, proving that they had it had the effect they wanted. It's going to give Warner Brothers pause about how they release their movies in the future, and whether or not they do day and date. And when they start doing day and date, that's going to remove the incentive for a lot of people to go to the theater. And so
Mhm.
I'm just worried it's that step down that road to not having theaters anymore, which would be um, heartbreaking for me to say the least.
Yeah.
I get that.
And it's hard to even imagine what the theaters could even do to kind of like adjust and evolve because the common phrasing adapt or die or whatever, right? It's like
Sure.
what do they even like? It's a movie theater, like there's
Yeah.
not really much more they can do. I mean they started adding the recliner seats and bars and
You can get
dine-in
food and
theaters,
yeah.
like and it's like that made a much more premium kind of experience for everybody to go in, but like what more can they really do? Like it puts theaters in a tough spot, and they're very expensive just to maintain. I mean, they're
Oh yeah.
when you even just like the huge buildings, like just the land cost, the
Yeah, the
rent
rent.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I don't even know what
Yeah.
more they could do.
I'm not trying to be an alarmist and say that, theaters will go away completely.
A
Obviously
lot will.
Yeah.
there's tons of stuff that technology has made not as prevalent as it used to be. So I think we'll still always have theaters, but I think what you said is correct. A lot will probably close if this is successful and if this is the way that studios start their primary focus is with an eye towards streaming. I think you'll see, instead of a new movie every weekend, you might or multiple movies in a lot of cases every weekend. You might get one or two a month and have just, half, if not a third of theaters exist. Have 2/3 to a half of them just shut their doors and just not they just not be around as much as they are now.
It's a
Right.
crazy thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's again like it's. I don't know what more they could do. I mean, like I do give them a lot of credit for even like right now the ones that have been able to be open to some capacity or doing things a little outside of the box. Like you can rent out the theater and play whatever movie you want. kind of thing. Like they're doing,
That's cool.
yeah. I mean, it may come down to where like that just becomes a more standard thing because if they're getting a lot less foot traffic because all the movies are coming out on streaming and theaters in like the same time or even like a week or two. I mean, if the theatrical window is cut down to like 7 to 14 days, like some of these, like I can't remember if it was a Cinemark or Regal deal. Like they made a deal where it's kind of a odd deal the way they did it because it's like if the movie makes $50 million like opening weekend, then they're allowed to put it on their streaming service or something. Like it's weird, but I mean it's after like 7 or 14 days or kind of thing. Like then they can do whatever they want with it, and like if that's the case, I could just see a lot of people out there just saying, do I go to the movie theater or do I wait a week
Yeah.
and just watch it on whatever, right? It's a little different if, that week period comes out and you still have to pay a premium price for it. Because I could see a lot of people going to the theater still at that point, but either way, it's not a very long period
There,
of time for people to just kind of wait.
yeah, there's, maybe it's a societal shift too. I already have plenty of friends that just don't go to the theater anymore. They wait for home video. Um, but I can't. You cannot replicate the communal aspect of it. You can't replicate the video and audio. Well, unless you're a multi-millionaire or multi-billionaire, you can't replicate the audio and video presentation that you get in a theater.
Mhm.
It's a
I mean,
different experience.
just think about the next. Yeah, it's a completely different. Just think about the next, Avengers movie that comes out, and if it comes streaming, you won't have that moment in the theater when Cap picks up Mjolnir and goes after Thanos, and the crowd, the entire theater erupts as if you were at a sporting event and your team just scored the
Right.
winning touchdown. It just, you lose those moments, and those to me are things that really I really enjoy, and I can't imagine not having.
I think the other downside too, before we move on here, with that, the communal experience is like what a lot of people who prefer, the movie going experience, like realistically, it is about that experience, right? Having you and it's just the sporting reference is a good example
Yeah.
because that's how it is. It's like you're in a stadium there and your team wins. That when that thing stuff happens, being a part of that shared experience is what makes it like special for a lot of people. But it's interesting because if you look at it like with that same lens, do you still even get that with so many less people going to the theaters anymore? Like,
That's
you
true.
know what I mean? Like that communal experience, even if theaters like are remained
With
open,
social
you go right
distancing.
now, yeah, with social distancing and all this happening, and if less people are going, you have like a half empty theater. Is it still even the same at that point? Like,
That's true. No, you're exactly right. It is muted. It's not doesn't have quite the same effect. I guess my thinking is that we are hopefully, knock on wood, getting towards the end of this segment, this period in history where there are reduced numbers. And hopefully, we'll have the vaccine, and hopefully, 6 months or a year from now,
Things will be normal.
Mhm.
people will, yeah, they'll be back to some state of normal. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
That's what the only problem there I see is the with the streaming services if those numbers never come back up. If you're able
Yeah,
to wait a week, people probably just going to wait a week. That's so
sure.
theaters might remain open in a lot of places, but that communal experience might be dead regardless. But
Yeah.
if no
Yeah.
one's going to theaters, so that kind of sucks. So but anyways, guys, I guess the most exciting news or the happy news with it all is that Wonder Woman is coming out on December 25th still, so that's still a big thing that we're getting, this year in 2020. So that's good. It comes at the end of the year, so I'm looking forward to seeing the movie. Obviously, though, like we said, these day and day releases, we've been saying it, on the show for months now that it's not the greatest thing for theaters, and they're already, these are trying times. These are unprecedented times, after all. So I don't know what do you guys think about this? Do you think it's just more, just generally a good thing that the movie's coming out in general, or are you kind of pessimistic in a lot of ways, like we are, or hesitant, I guess, just because it just smells like doom, I guess you could say, for the theater industry even further. So whatever you guys think, let us know down in the comment section below.